Platform Nigeria is powered by the Covenant Nation.
You're live at the Platform Nigeria, and our next speaker he really needs no introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. I scoured through the internet to try to pronounce his surname, and then I remembered I have a Zulu member of my team, and I said, please, help me, don't let me disgrace myself. So here goes. Our next speaker is Vusi Thembekwayo. He's a South African venture capitalist, entrepreneur, and the founding CEO of My Growth Fund and IC Knowledge Bureau. At 25, Vusi ran a 400 million rand division at a renowned multinational and was one of the youngest directors of a listed company on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. His mentorship program discovers and nurtures high-growth Black entrepreneurs through funding, incubation, and enterprise development. Vusi Thembekwayo has been a catalyst for change in businesses across the globe through expertise in strategy, leadership, and organizational culture to organizations such as Metcash. Please join me with a warm applause as we welcome Vusi Thembekwayo.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, amazing, amazing, amazing. Glory to God, glory to God. Glory to God. And to the Vusi Nation, let me say hello, family. What an incredible privilege to be here at Covenant Nation, Pastor Poju, and to the leadership of this incredible church and this community. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you all. Shall we give Pastor Poju a round of applause? Extraordinary. And to my fellow speakers that have come before me and those that will come after me, I'm so humbled and privileged to share a stage with men and women of your caliber and substance. Round of applause for the other speakers on this program. I hope to tap into some of that alpha intelligence that I heard mentioned a bit earlier. Help me. Hold on. Yeah, do that. That's going to help. It's going to help. It's going to help. What an incredible time to be alive. What an incredible moment in the history of this little rock we call Earth for all of us to be here as sentient beings experiencing this thing called life. Never, not in the history of this glorious continent of ours, have we had at our footsteps the opportunities that we have, and I speak in particular to the young people who have this incredible opportunity you have in front of you today. When you consider what it's taken for this moment to come to be, when you consider what it's taken for these opportunities we have in front of us to be presented before us, you can't help but bask in the incredible glory of this opportunity. And if I'm sounding cryptic, I will double-click in a minute. I have a theory, and that theory will be my thesis for our time today. And it is this. It is that this moment and this season is for you and I to seize and to make the best of it. But for us to seize it and to make the best of it, we have to be intentional about this moment and this season. Having listened to the speakers that came before me, it's a consistent and a persistent theme that they shared with us here today, that excellence can happen under many circumstances, but it can never happen as a coincidence of fact. Excellence happens when you are intentional and deliberate about pursuing excellence. Now let me say, as a, how do I explain this? In my spiritual life, I would love to have been Nigerian. I really would have, I really would have. I shared with Pastor yesterday, I said, you know, Nigerians are so interesting. You guys imported the church and are now exporting the church to the countries where you imported the church from. If you go anywhere in the world and you find a community of Nigerians, you will find a church, a business, and a church. And it is, I must tell you, the cause of much envy from the rest of us who come from many other parts of the continent. Because that which for you is second nature and a part of what is a part of your makeup, we are still learning. We are still learning how to make things happen for ourselves. We're still learning how to believe in ourselves. We're still learning how to migrate into foreign territories and terrains and establish a community of those like ourselves. See, we're still new at this project of being intentional about what we want our community to be. Now, what I want to mask over the cracks, so let me be clear. That your beautiful country, beautiful albeit, is not perfect. But if you seek perfection, you will miss the opportunity for improvement. And so the challenge for us young people in the season we are in today is to bemoan less the state of imperfection and to bask more in the opportunity of improvement. Everything we are, everything we present, and everything we export to the rest of the world is a function and a consequence of us seeing first the opportunity for improvement and then seizing it. So, whereas there are those that bemoan that which is not perfect, there must be those amongst us that look for the cracks and create value out of the imperfections. For those of you here who are entrepreneurs, you know this because you do this on the daily. My brother E, who was here on stage earlier, and many others like him from this beautiful land of yours are examples to the rest of us in many other parts of the continent of what I call the true spirit of what it means to be a Nigerian. Now allow me, if you will, to be a bit facetious in my approach today, even presumptuous. Allow me to tell you how the rest of us from outside of this beautiful land of the yoga see your country from the outside. First, Nigeria is chaos. Wow. I genuinely think Jesus wakes up on a Sunday and goes, yo, wow. They're still doing it. It's chaos. Absolute chaos. And so, where do you find value? Is you find value in spaces where there is chaos. The reason Nigerians thrive no matter where in the world you are is whereas those of us who come from perfect environments of cushioned order get jolted into the chaos of reality. When you guys find yourself in chaos, you go, look, home. Woo! What a gift. Pastor, on the drive here, my calf muscles pulled a sprain because I kept clinching so many times, my buttocks together, as we were migrating through the traffic. Now, in the country I come from, we have these things on the road called lanes. Glory to God, glory to God, glory to God. It's a crazy idea, this thing called the lane, but basically the simple theory behind it is this: that you take a single block of black tar and you draw upon this block white lines, and that these lines should serve as demarcations of how we behave on the road. There are some rules to go with these lines. The one rule is that if the line is solid, you may not switch from the one end of the line to the other. Nigerians didn't get the memo. You guys just jump up from the one side to the other. There is another rule, that if there is a section of this tar that has got yellow markings in it, the yellow markings designate an island. It's a crazy thing, this thing of an island. It means that none amongst us should populate it. No, not in Nigeria. So on the drive here, I watch and enjoy. I mean, this is a true story. They have now made 10 Fast and Furious movies. I challenge Hollywood to make a Fast and Furious Lagos. I challenge them. I want to see something. Yeah. So I arrived here yesterday, and the incredible, and the good people here at Covenant Nation have been so judicious in getting us here and diligent. True mark, by the way, honestly, and I'm not saying this because Pastor and Mummy are in front of me, but a true mark of what it's taken to build this place. I shared last night over dinner that anybody who looks at platform and what this platform has become, anybody who looks at what Covenant Nation has become, and looks in particular over the growth trajectory of the past 36 months, will miss the 20-year foundation it took to make the 26 months manifest. And so a lot of us, I think in particular young people, miss the lesson about being instrumental, judicious, and diligent in how you sow your seeds in the season of sowing. So that when the season to reap comes, this is important, it finds you in equal measure, not only in your talent, but also in your character. There are some of us who miss the fruits of our labor, not because you didn't have the talent to labor, but because you didn't have the character to protect the fruits. And so required of us then is not only the intelligence and the understanding of the opportunities, but also the character of what it takes for preservation. I said this to my own son, my oldest son, who's 12 years old. I said to him, you must understand that in building dynasties, there is a different requirements of each and every single emperor. There is the emperor whose role it is to establish the dynasty in the first place. This is the age of accumulation. And accumulation requires a different kind of intonation. It requires a different kind of proclivity, a different kind of attitude, a different kind of character. When you're in the accumulatory stage of your stage, your life, your career, your business, your mental space, that means your character needs to be that of an insatiable appetite. Constantly going to new spaces and new terrains, learning new languages, advancing into new markets, taking courageous risks where others think you should not. That's the role of the emperor in the stage of accumulation. There are some of you in this room who are in your stage of accumulation. The wisdom of the ages is to recognize when there is a shifting of the order. When it changes from accumulation to preservation. When it's no longer about what do we acquire, but what do we protect? And how do we build the necessary instruments to preserve that we have accumulated? Too many of us in our communities know all too often the stories of families that were wealthy at a point in time and then misused or misplaced their wealth. It is perhaps the one thing that will keep up any parent who's raising children in the sophistry and comfort of wealth is, will they have the character to preserve that which I have accumulated? Now, to accumulate, one needs the insatiable appetite of the predatory animal that marches across the savannah, constantly conquering new territories and new terrains. But to preserve, it's a different character. Subtle, more judicious. Smart and intelligent in how it takes risks. And both of these, necessary, but are different in how we build and how we scale. So yesterday, when I arrived at the airport, one of my favorite things about coming to Nigeria, there's a video of mine that went viral and trended on social media. And by the way, let me just say, because I've never said it publicly before, to each and every single one of you, my brothers and sisters, who has shown me support, thank you. I really appreciate it. You owe me nothing. I get the most incredible amount of love and support from my brothers and sisters here in Nigeria. And I want to say thank you. Take the moment to say thank you. There is a video of mine that trended on social media, and I was talking about the hustler spirit that Nigerians have here. Most of you, if you've not traveled outside of your own country, would not be aware of this, but this hustler spirit that's built into your DNA, that oozes out of the red in your blood if you were to cut your skin, that makes up a fundamental part of who you are. That hustler spirit is foreign to some of us in other parts of the world. It's so deeply ingrained in who you are that we misunderstand it and we make enemies out of you. We find you in our markets and in our territory, and we think you're the enemy rather than we learn from how you move and how you do things. Now, there are some who will find the bad apples and say, but look at the bad apples. Well, show me any nation, any group, any civilization, or any tribe that does not amongst it have a rotten few apples. The opportunity for us as Africans is to bridge the gap. It's to reach across the divide and say, what can I learn from my brothers in Lagos or Port Harcourt or in South or Southwest? What can I learn? So I arrived at the airport yesterday, and I immediately know, as I get off the plane, I'm like, right, Vusi, we're in hustler land. Get ready for the hustle. And I love how Nigerians hustle you out of money. They call it a blessing. You have no blessing for me, oh. And so as we make our way through the airport, every person I meet asks for the blessing. Now, the first time I came here, I blessed everybody. Because I didn't know you can say no. And my bank account wants to thank you for teaching me how to say no. I've learned so much about how to say no without saying no coming here in Nigeria. It's just been the most incredible experience. I want to say the following: take not for granted this hustler spirit that keeps your nation alive. Do you know, in every single economy, in every single marketplace, across the length and breadth of this beautiful continent we call home, if you look for a landmark company changing the terrain, you will find a Nigerian in the top 3. So there is a lot for us to learn then from each other. And for me, one of the things I learn is there is so much to glean from a people who can make order out of chaos, who can make navigating the Lagos traffic something they do on the daily to work and back, without having to take any substances to dull their senses. This is I say it in jest, but it's an incredible trait. It is an incredible trait. It's the reason why, whether you are in downtown Joburg or in downtown Tokyo, you will find a Nigerian making a life for themselves. Making a life for themselves. So I came to say the following here today. I came to say thank you from one African to another. Thank you for teaching us what is possible when people are intentional about what they want to do and build. Thank you. I came to say thank you for never losing hope and faith in where this beautiful country of yours is going. Because even though there are some macro challenges, and macro challenges there are, make no doubt, at underlying each of those macro challenges is huge potential upside and opportunity. So thank you. But what of the future then? And to arc back to the theme of why we are gathered here today, if we are to cast our imaginations into the future, and to read forward how we must innovate into that future, then how must we be? And more importantly, who must we be? Perhaps there is an unlearning that must take place for a new learning to emerge. Perhaps we need to leave behind some of the things we have made ourselves and learn anew the people we must become in the global context. Who and what must we be? How must we show up? I thought long and hard about the theme that had gathered us here today and wondered if I should take the academic approach to how we break down this conversation of innovation and the future. But the fact of the matter is, there is ample knowledge and information that you can find online at your own time that talks a bit about the innovation and the future and where the world is going. Here is what I think is our single most important trait. Here is what I think is the single most important characteristic that we have as Africans, to which we must double-click, that's going to position us for the future. It's not something they teach in business schools. You can't learn it in the boardroom, and there is no course on how to acquire more of this trait and this characteristic. It's something that is a function of your exposure, your education, your training at home, and your faith. It's one word that has been the summation of what it has meant to be an African living in this continent of ours over the past 300 years. It's the one word that has captured both yours and my ancestors, regardless of what deprivation we suffered in the past, whether it was colonization for you or apartheid for us. It is the one thing that has been the glue between the Zulus and the Igbos, the one thing that has been the glue between the people of the Kikuyu and the Basotho. That no matter where in the continent we find ourselves, it is the single substantive fact that makes this one word a unison description of who we are. When we say, I am an African, that it means the same thing for me as it does for you, even if we don't understand each other's languages. And that word is hope. Hope. It's the hope that's brought us to this moment. The hope that made you wake up today. The hope that has you sitting in that chair knowing that the information and knowledge that you're acquiring is equipping you for the future you hope to build. It's the hope that your parents had for you when they reared you up into the world and brought you into being an adult who would contribute to society. It's the hope of a religious leader who thinks of his mission beyond simply spreading the word to spreading a way of life. It's the hope of a nation that says, it doesn't matter what the political status quo is, we will rise. It's the hope of a generation that says, beyond the things we suffer today, we want a better future. Hope. It's the one trait we must never, ever lose. Take all of the knowledge you've heard here today, all the incredible learning that's come out from the speakers aforementioned and the speakers who will come after this. Knowledge without hope is like laying a seed on a ground of weeds. It births nothing. It results in nothing. And so the question I have for all of you here gathered today is, what is your hope for the future? And what are you willing to do to make it manifest and make it real? What is your hope for the future? My hope is this, and I'm cognizant of my time. First, that our generation will be a generation that can be marked by these two words, honesty and integrity. That our generation will be a generation that is referenced by the rest of the world and the generations that follow us as they that showed us that we could be a people of honesty and integrity. Second is that our generation will be a generation that emphasizes fairness and justice. That we will go beyond simply that which is made real by the levers of power, but that which must be made real by the levers of justice. And recognize that those two things are not always the same. And third, that our generation will be a generation of service and generosity. A generation that extends itself beyond itself and reaches out across the divide. I want to belong to a generation of great men and women. I want to belong to a generation that inspires artists to write poems and musicians to write music. I want to belong to a generation that inspires young people to imagine a different future. I want to belong to that generation. I had the incredible privilege of meeting a man that belonged to that generation, the founding father of our own country, South Africa. A man who spent 27 years imprisoned in jail, 19 of them in an island designated away from his own home and his own family. A man who didn't have the privilege of raising his own children because he was trying to raise the hopes of a generation that would follow him. And the recognition that all of us here bear the responsibility of laying into our futures the works of our present task. That what we seed today, we reap tomorrow. As a father of 3 children, let me tell you, you couldn't separate them from me for 27 years, not for the love of money. And the single idea that one man would sacrifice his entire privilege of fatherhood, fighting for a principle, is something we should all learn from. Some of us change our principles just at the whims of a hashtag on Twitter. Are you willing to stand behind your principles? This is the age of men and women of principles. An age where the rest of the world seems to have lost its mind. Taking 13-year-old infantile boys, dressing them up in drag and putting them to perform in front of old men who are attracted to children and refer to themselves as those attracted to minor persons. There's a word for that. It's called pedophilia. The rest of the world seems to have lost its mind. And that when men and women of principles used to speak up against these things, those who now live in vice want to convince us that vice is virtue, that wrong is right, and that if you dare speak on the principles of right and wrong, you are against progress. Well, let me tell you, if being a traditionalist and protecting the value of family and society and nation building and goodness and what's right makes me regressive, then call me regressive all you want. Beyond how we march into the future must be asked the question, what are the principles beyond which we are not willing to negotiate? Who will we be in the future? And how do we hold the line at the frontier of those principles? This is being streamed online. I am telling you for free that they will come for me after watching this. And this is why we cannot be believers and be cowards. This is why we cannot live by the blood of the covenant and be apologists for what's right. Because this season calls upon us that in an age where technology can outthink you, outdo you, and outwork you, it can't outworship you. Technology can't outhope you. It can't outhuman you. It can't outvalue you. The principles of what it means. We as Africans are the last frontier holding the line. And we must never forget that this is our season and our moment to hold the line. And so the question I ask of all of you here is, where are the men and women who are holding the line? In your spaces and your industries and your boardrooms, where are the men and women who say, this far and no further? I will not be part of that corruption, not be part of that deal, not be part of that discussion, not be part of that cheating. No, I will not be part of it. This far and no further. I'm so good, I should run for politics. What do you think? We must not lose principle. We must not lose hope. We must not lose faith. At 17, I had the incredible privilege of meeting Nelson Mandela. I just won the World Championship in public speaking. And I arrived at his office to meet him. And he and I sat in his study for an hour, what felt like an eon. And my mother, in preparing me for the meeting with Madiba, said to me, look smart, sound intelligent, don't embarrass me. Still the three words I utter in my head every time before I get on stage. And I decided that the only way I could be a young man of any substance in that meeting, and young people listen to this because it's important, was if I said nothing but asked really good questions. The life you seek and the blessing you pray for is at the other end of the questions you ask. Ask good questions. And so throughout the entire meeting, I'd prepared notes and taken notes. And I was asking these really good questions. And about 58 minutes into the meeting, his assistant, Zelda, peeks her head through the door, a mark that it's time to wrap this up. And Madiba, in only the most iconic way Madiba could do, looked at me puzzled, and he said, you know, when they scheduled the meeting, they told me you are a world champion public speaker. And I said to him, yebo tata. Tata, by the way, is a beautiful Xhosa word. It means grandfather. And Madiba looked at me and he said, but man, you have not spoken. He then looked at me and he said, "Have you any final questions?" The question I asked him is the one I will ask of you. And the answer he gave me is the wisdom I hope for all of you here. I asked of him, I said, "Tata, what is your hope for the future of South Africa?" And I want to take some poetic license and say, what is hope for the future of this continent? And Madiba looked at me and he said, "We need a little bit of faith." I asked him, "What is faith?" He said, "Faith is the ability to believe in the impossible. It is the ability to see the invisible, and the ability to trust in the unknown." Now I know that you cannot see what's at the other end of this chasm, that you are not known of what's happening on the other side, but I promise you here today, as sure as my name is Vusi Thembekwayo, I am 6'2" Zulu and good looking, I guarantee you this, that the mark of what it's meant to be an African is we are a people of faith and hope. And that what I pray for you, your nation, for this church, and for our entire generation is that we will live by principle, we will live in hope, and we will be people of faith. I'm so humbled that you have invited me here. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.